Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome and thanks for being here. Feels like it's been a while since it's just been us. Shout out to Rob, Sports Card Therapist, for back-to-back episodes. Uh, as talked about on the last episode, we'll start dropping a joint episode every 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that and definitely looking forward to it. If you haven't seen the flyer yet for trade night at the National, go to my IG account, sportscard_lessons. There you'll see the flyer there. Friday night at National, July 28th. 6 to 9 at the Crown Plaza, directly across the street from the convention center. Cash bar, DJ. This will be an absolute must attend if you're at National. Mark your calendars. It is going to be a great time. Also, if you don't follow the Wolfpack content, the Wolfpack content with underscores between the two, you'll get information there as well, and any updated information there. And also, there's 7 of us dropping content every week. It drops on Wednesday. We take turns matching up each week, and it's just great content. So if you're looking to add some more content, definitely go check that out. I went to a local card show this past weekend in Plainville, Connecticut. Doors opened at 9. I got there just before 10. The place was packed. I struggled to find a place to park. I struggled to get up to a table just to look into the cases at a table. And that inspired today's episode. Dealer or attendee? I realized over the last few shows I've attended, I'm better suited as a dealer than an attendee at a show. And I wonder how many people will agree with me and how many of you never thought about even being a dealer. And if it wasn't for being a dealer first and my experience working in a prison for 30 years, because of the crowds, I probably would never attend card shows. I've realized over, I'm going to say the past few shows, but probably since July of last year, that I'm better suited as a dealer than an attendee at card shows. I first realized this at National last year in Atlantic City. I arrived, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday is set up for National. And Wednesday, the doors open at 4 p.m. So it's like a sneak peek, early preview, whatever they call it. It's, it runs from 4 to 7 on Wednesday. So I arrived in Atlantic City last year on the Wednesday, got set up. I got there in the morning. I think doors opened at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. So by noon, I had my everything was already set up. So I had about 4 hours, right, to go walk around the show, really look at the show. And, what a difference it makes that I saw it in reverse when the doors were open and the people are there. That, when you're there, when everybody's just set up, I mean, you can see how far it is both ways and what's going on. But when that room becomes crowded with people, it's just like a sea of people that, you really have no idea how massive the room is with so many people in there. But it probably took me about 4 hours to walk the show. And this is with nobody around, right? This is with, you're walking up the tables, and if dealers are already set up, they're just kind of hanging out, talking. And there's people like myself just walking around, and you really get that one-on-one time with dealers. And my plan last year, I shared the table with Sports Card Therapist. And my plan was I was going to man the table Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He had it Saturday with Amel, and Sunday somebody else had taken the table. So that worked for me, right? I set up, I'm at the table and I set up, but on that Saturday when I was my day to go walk around, where I said, okay, now I'm going to go walk the show. It was insane with people, and of course, Saturday is like the biggest day of any show, really. Any weekend show, Saturday is the biggest day, but especially national, right? And I found myself just kept circling back to our square, coming in the back and just getting behind and really just getting shelter, right, away from all the people. Um, and ever since that show, I've just realized that, you know, I it's not that I guess I don't do well with crowds too, right? Maybe I should just throw that out there. I never really found myself not to do well with crowds. And I don't mind being in crowded areas, but not if I'm trying to get up um, and see a table, like try to get up and push through people and things like that. Um, it's a lot for me. It's a lot, and to have people like up against you and they're, over your shoulder. And that's what these shows are becoming now, right? Because they during the or right after the pandemic, they were very crowded, and then the shows had slowed down, but now I think they're bigger. I think the shows are even more crowded now than they were right after the pandemic. And I know that's hard to believe, but I've watched it go from busy to slow to, I'm going to say, even busier now. And I'm not saying that um, people are, all those people are spending money. I'm just saying all these people are at the shows. There's a lot more people at the shows, and I think the collectors, the attendees, the people purchasing, I think we've all been a little bit more educated. I think the frenzy after the pandemic, the buying frenzy that went on, and people found themselves, holding things that weren't worth what they paid for them. I think it's made us smarter collectors too. And as we're buying things, we're double and triple checking, and then we're trying to make a better educated decision if this is what we want to buy, right? But getting back, just to the crowds itself, I could probably blame it. I say blame it, right? I could probably blame it on prison, right? The way I react in the crowds, and after 30 years in prison, when you're in an area that's loud and crowded, you don't want anybody touching you, and that's just a thing. Nobody touches you. Nobody comes near you in prison, because if they do, then there's an issue. There's a problem, right? So, and you're always on high alert. Where people are and what they're doing. And when you're at these shows too, because of my prison background, I'm always like, okay, my money's locked here, my case is locked. I'm always like, think like I nobody's ever tried to rip me off at a show, or try to steal anything from me. But it's that mindset that once it's in there, you never get rid of it. You never shed it. It's always there. So I kind of like my personal space. So that's why I think I have a tough time being at these crowded shows and getting up to tables, and even when you get up to a table, um, it's difficult to talk to, to try to negotiate, because the more crowded it is, the less of a deal you're going to get, I think, because I find myself doing the same thing when people are, somebody says, "Hey, how much for that?" I'm afraid to say how much for that. I'm like waiting for people like to kind of go away to say, "What do you want?" Because as soon as you bring attention to something, everybody wants to see it. And I watched this happen, last weekend when I was at the show, that I was looking at a card. It got a little quiet, and I said, "Hey, how much for this card?" And he said, "Oh, and before you know it, the guy next to me is like, "Oh, will you take blah?" Like, all of a sudden, I'm asking about this card, and this guy over here is offering him, uh, like he was talking to him and not me. So I think it's tougher to get a good deal too on that side of the table, right? As an attendee. Um, so since national, all the shows that I've set up at, um, all I should say, all the shows I've gone to, I've set up at. So I really hadn't had to put up, you know, felt that uncomfortableness, because I'm on my side of the table. Even the smaller shows, that I go to now are getting busy. So, I know there's a show next weekend, and after leaving this show, been busy, and a couple of the shows before that have been really busy. I reached out where I would have normally just walked that show next week. I reached out to the promoter and I said, "Hey, you have any tables? Let's just grab a table next week." And he's like, "Yeah, let me find out. I'll get back to you." And here's a show that I could always get a table. All I had to do is make a phone call, and I had to wait for him to get back to me to say, "Yeah, yeah, I can squeeze you in." So even this show that hasn't been the busiest show right now, all of a sudden there's you know, to get a table as a dealer, they're selling out too. So it just shows kind of where the hobby's going too, which is exciting. Um, I talked about getting out to shows that I've never attended before, few episodes ago, and talked about going to Philly. Um, and at Philly, it brought that's where it kind of brought it back. It wasn't even this past weekend, it was in Philly. Um, that it was so busy there, so you were able to get in. So here's the whole thing about, we talked with Rob about it. I'm not going to recap a lot of that, but when we went to this show, we knew somebody, we said, "Hey, can you get us in? Can you get a dealer badge? Can you get us in?" And we were able to get in early, which is great. Absolutely great. But on a Saturday, when you get there early, and even when I'm setting up as a dealer, because this is what we do, right? We go to a show, we get there early, we set up, and then we're out going around and we're looking to see what other people have. Do deals get done? Yes. Are they good deals? Are they great deals? I don't know. I've never really made a great deal early in a Saturday morning because I know dealers are firm. I'm firm, right? The day hasn't even started yet, right? The show hasn't even started yet, and I've got a card for $1,000, and you're trying to get it for 800, and the comps are say 875. I'm probably going to say no. At this point, I'll do 9 on it. Right? If you really want it, I'll do 9 on it right now. But if it's in my case at the end of the day and you come back, we can work on something. And I think most dealers feel the same way. Um, so it's good. You get out, and you can scout around and get that one-on-one time with dealers and know what you like. But when you're set up there, you're there all day anyways, right? So at the end of the day, you can go back and circle back around, see what people have left. And, if something and I've talked about this. If something is for your PC, do you really care if it costs you an extra 20 or 50 or $100? For the like I know myself, no, and a lot of people I talk to know. Some people, yes. Some people are like, you know what? Even though it's going to my PC, I have a price point, and I don't want to go over that price point. But I know if it's especially it's two versions, right? If it's a card I'm looking for, that I've been looking for, and I see it, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna get this." It just depends how much I'm gonna either, pay at comps or over comps, but I wanna get it. And again, if I show up and I see a card that I didn't even know existed, or I said, "Wow, that's a really cool card." Some cards I say, "Hey, let me look at that card." And when that card goes in my hand, I already know it's leaving with me. I just have to figure out, if the price is gonna be right. And a couple times, it's not every card. I don't just go throw my money and say, "Whatever you say is I'm gonna take it." Because I've a couple of times I've had the card in my hand that I really wanted the card, and I said, "Hey, can you do this?" And they'd be like, "No." Not like, "I could do this instead or that instead." It's just like, "No." And we all know that, when dealers put a price on something in there, you know, eh, everything's a little negotiable. Maybe not a lot, but everything's a little negotiable. And I kinda get turned off if, someone's like, "No, no," and kinda dismiss me like, "You should have known already that that card is whatever." And I've handed the card back, or I put it down, or I've walked away. I said, "You know what? I'll find that card again." And there have been times where I couldn't get a deal done, and I talked about this going back, a few months ago, back to the fall, where I was trying to buy, a Mario Lemieux rookie card, and the dealer would just not work with me, and I'm just telling him, "Look, this is the comp on the card," and he's like, "Yeah, I don't care." And I literally bought the card on eBay at the show. I bought the card on eBay at the show for a better price, including what was free shipping, but including taxes, right? It was still a better price than what I would have paid him. So, I understand I'm a dealer. I understand some cards that either you don't want to let go and we're a little high on. And I always appreciate Sports Card Therapist. He says this, he's taught me to say this, and I appreciate other dealers that say this is I'm high on that card right away, right off the beat. Just say, hey, I'm high on that card. I'm probably not going to let it go for anything less than what it's marked at, because I'd probably rather keep the card. And I completely understand, because as dealers, everybody has at least one card or more in their case that they feel that way about. And the longer I'm in the hobby and the longer I set up at shows and the longer I talk to dealers, the more I recognize, that some of these cards, like a Gretzky rookie or a Lemieux rookie or a Brady rookie or, something like that, that people kind of get attached to. And there is a price. It will sell for a price, but it may not be the price you like. And if it's not, you just move on, because unless the card's a pop 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, which most of these cards aren't, you'll be able to find it somewhere else. It doesn't have, you don't have to, like, I guess the point I'm making is I don't have to have this argument at a table with somebody, because I understand how they're feeling about that card. And I felt the same way about cards. One of the great things about being a dealer, right, is being able to really take the time in the morning to take an inventory of the room of all the cards that you would want to get or you would think about getting. It's a mental, I do this, it's a mental inventory. And I talk about when even as an attendee at shows, I'll walk a whole show before, and I'll keep in mind, I like this Burrow card, or I like this Brady card, whatever it is, but I'll just keep it in the back of my head as I'm moving on. And then I'll circle back around. My first pass around, I'll never make a sale. I'll never purchase anything my first pass. I may talk to people about it, and I may be the person that comes back and the card is gone. Right. And it's happened to be a number of times. But I'll look at a card and in the mornings, take a mental note. And in the afternoon, I'll take a walk back around. It slows down. I'm usually set up with somebody to say, hey, can you watch my table? I want to just take a quick walk around, and I'll go back and look for it. And if I see it still there in the case, I'll be like, okay, so now maybe I can work a deal on it. Sometimes I go back and I'll say, oh, did you sell and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I sold that card. Or no, I ended up taking it out of my case because people were lowballing me, or, they're anything. But at least I knew it was there, and I tried to go back and get it. But even better as a dealer, right? When you're set up, the cards come to you. When people come in, and this is why one of the reasons I don't overspend in the morning, because I want to kind of keep my cash that I'm coming with, because I'm hoping these great cards are going to show up at my table that I can purchase. And everybody's Zion case, and I say Zion cases, there's backpacks, there's Tupperware, I've seen some really creative ways to carry cards, but all those things that show up at your table, right? They're just like everybody else's case in this room. Just like everybody else's case in the room. And the deals are better. For most of those cards in those cases, the deals are better. So even though I'm a dealer selling at a show, I've really become a shopper, right? Because for more than 50% of that day, I'm shopping. I'm going through people's cases. I'm looking at their cards. And if you've been to any card shows, you understand what I mean. Everybody's just walking around. And there's people that just literally go from table to table with, one card in each hand. Are you buying? And just holding up 2 cards, 1 card in each hand. And just to give you, just so you know, you don't have to take it. And No, yes, no. No, it's not what I'm looking for, or, "Yeah, let me take a look at that card." They don't wanna waste your time any more than you don't wanna waste their time, and especially in a busy room, right? So you'd be talking to this person and going on to the next person, somebody may just put their hand up over the, "Hey, you interested in this card?" No, they'll move on. But to me, that's part of the best part about setting up. I mean, we're there to sell things, but I talked about this sometimes. I spend more money buying than I do selling at a show, um, good or bad, right? Because sooner or later I have to sell some of this stuff. Um, but it's just amazing how many things, how many deals, better deals show up at your table than any deal you're probably going to get a case in that room. And remember, there's a lot of expense. I know I have this expense. I paid for the table. I've set up there. So there's expense, and we all have expenses to pay to be there. Some of us travel further than others and things like that. So, when somebody's showing up at my table and they have a card that I like, and I say, "What are you looking to get on it?" And if they're at 100% or 110% comps, we're not even close. We're not even close because you know what? I've paid to be here. I paid to have the space to be here. You paid a few dollars to get in. If that's what you're at the card, that's fine, but that's not a card I can buy. Um, and I always get amused that, somebody will come in and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I want 90% comps or 95% comps," or, whatever number kind of they throw out there on a card, right? And then immediately they'll be like, "Oh, will you take for this card?" And they'll want to sell me their card in the 90 or 95 or 100% comps, but they want to buy my card at 70% comp, and I'll start laughing and I'll be like, "Okay, come on." You you got to give either way. You got to give in. You can't get 100% for your card and 70% for mine, because I can't. You know what? I can't buy these cards at 50% or 60%, so I can't sell them to you at that. Um, and it's a dance, right? It's an all day dance as a dealer. I mean, we're just there dancing all day. The busier the show, the more you're dancing, right? And I like it like that. Nothing worse than a slow show, and I haven't seen one of those in a long time, and I don't expect to see one of those for an awful long time now. And people talk about the hobby being alive and well. Seriously, it is alive and well. Um, If I don't get tables moving forward, I've been reaching out to people. I talk to people, online, and I'm always like, "Look, like, just can I get a case? Do you have a space? Just let me set up a case." Um, I would be happy with that. Just if on some of these bigger shows you can. I apply to some of these shows, the bigger shows, and they only have a few extra open tables for from this show to the next. Um, I talked about, possibly getting in to do the Dallas show, um, and you know, that really didn't work out, because there's a lot of travel involved. So if you start buying, plane tickets like a Burbank show or a Mint Collective show in Las Vegas or the Chicago Spectacular, there's just a lot involved. Um it's easier to be able to get in a car and drive to some of these shows, but when you've got to fly, you're very limited of what you can bring as far as inventory, to a show, and everything's got to kind of come together, right? It has to make sense, and that was the problem with the Dallas show. The money I had to put out just to get there, it just didn't make sense to get there, um, to go to that show, but I've been talking with somebody about some future show, the Chantilly show in June. I think I've got some table space, for that, so I'm excited. There's another show I haven't been to before, so I could add that to my list of shows that I'm attending that I haven't been to. Um, but yeah, I think moving forward for me to go to any of these shows, I really even if it's just one case space, right? Um, just so I have a place to retreat to, and I have a way to, make some money, in selling the cards, right? And it's all about the connections you make too. Like the more shows I do, the more people I connect with, and certain people do certain shows. I do shows with people who only do the big shows, Dallas, Burbank, Chicago, and maybe one or two here on the East Coast. And then there's other people that do all the local shows, kind of like what I do, every local show up in this area. Um, but when you're doing these same shows over and over, it's great to see the people, but a lot of times you start seeing the same cards over and over too. So it's nice kind of just to get out and see what else is out there. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about getting out. It was one of my goals at the beginning of the year is getting out to do some shows that I haven't been to before, and I've really stepped up and been true to my word in getting that done. Uh, I used to feel, I used to feel the prices of tables, at shows were a little inflated. But some of the things I've learned, over the last few years is, you know, everybody pays the same for a table. So you show up at a table, if the tables are 100, 200, 300, 5, whatever it is, everybody's paying the same. I've never complained. I've never complained about the cost of a table. I just plan ahead. And I'll say that again, I plan ahead. And you can't plan ahead enough, especially when you're preparing for a show. And the better the plan, the more success at a show. So i- if you're paying for a table, even if it's a 1K space, you have to you know cover that. That money needs to be covered. So if I'm going to a show where a table is very expensive, this is where I have to make a decision, right? Is it worth it for me to pay for that table? Do I have enough inventory for the market that I'm going to be able to sell to make everything happen? Or does this just become more of a hobby and say, I probably don't, and it's probably I may not make that money back, but I really want to go to this show. So I'm gonna chalk it up to a learning experience, and I may have to pay for that entertainment that weekend, but I want to attend the show. So there's a couple different ways we can look at it, but you know what? Planning ahead. I mean, that is the key, and knowing the market, knowing where you're going to be, know the show. Uh, I talk to people all the time. I'm kind of a talker, and I ask a lot of questions because I want to be as prepared as possible. So when I talk to somebody about a Philly show, and when I talk to somebody um, about a Dallas show or a Fenway show, any of these shows, a Springfield show, a last show, and I try to help people out to say, hey, this is what these shows are about. This is mostly what people are looking for. If you have this, if you have that, and every show is different. So I'm that person that's always reaching out to people, asking questions. Hey, what do you think of this show? I've got one case. What should I be putting in it? Should I be bringing my hockey? Should I be bringing my football? Should I be bringing my pop culture? What do you think? What do you think is going to sell there? And the communication between most people, right, is just part of planning ahead. Um, and speaking of shows, I have 4 shows over the next 5 weeks. It's gonna be a busy run for me. You're gonna get a lot of content, because I'm gonna have a lot of shows to talk about. But this weekend, I am setting up, in New Britain, this Sunday. April 8th, I'm in Springfield, Mass, the New England Sports Card Show. I've also been invited to speak on a panel Saturday night after the show at the Basketball Hall of Fame. So I'm pretty excited about that. Uh, April 15th and 16th, I have the Hofstra Show in Long Island. That's one of my favorites, probably one of the busier shows that I do. And then the weekend after that, I'm in Toronto. Talked about going to Toronto. So this Toronto show will be the only show at this point that I'll be attending that I don't have a table at or any table space, but I've reached out to a couple people that I know are setting up there to see if possibly for Saturday I may be able to get some table space. So always working, always trying to get things done. So yeah, this is my strategy as my card show strategies, as a dealer. I mean, I'm going to be walking too, but um I like having that retreat area behind the table. And I don't know how many other people feel like that. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people that feel like, feel like that too. Get a little overwhelmed with the crowds. Um, but that's it. That's all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. Most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.